welcome back to this video. This is a continuation of the C# beginner series. If you are new here, kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you are updated when a new video comes out. In our previous video, we did look at polymorphism and generally the OOP. In this particular video, we will look at what the virtual keyword in C# is. The virtual keyword shows that a class member can be overridden in the child class. So we have talked about inheritance when we talked about the pillars of OOP. Now, virtual keyword, when we use the virtual, it means that if a class is inherited, then if it is marked virtual, we are telling the class that we are inheriting from that it can override it. And we'll look at what that looks like. And the virtual keyword applies to methods, properties, meaning that you cannot use the word virtual for a class or field. We'll come back to this, but let's just look at an example of what and how virtuals are used. So here we have our program.cs, and what we could just do is we have a class and let's call it tutorial class. Tutorial. So this is basically the name of the class, and in tutorial we have, for example, the subject. Let's say subject. Let's just say this is something we have there, and then we have a method that will show us the subject. So console log. So it will just be a void, and then it will be show message, show subject rather. So basically what we'll just do here is just we'll have a console log dot write line, and then let's just say the subject is, and then we have our subject here. Basically we have this, and this is our tutorial class, and it just has a subject and then it has a method that shows the subject. So if I come here now and I should just show us this, so we create the class, we create an instance of the class, and if we say tutorial subject, if we say it is mathematics, and then we go ahead to say and we go ahead to say tutorial dot show subject. If we go ahead to run this now, what we're expecting that it has set the subject to mathematics, and so when it says show subject, it should show the subject is mathematics. So let's run that and see. So here we see that the subject is mathematics is what we have here, and basically that's what we were expecting. So it's working as it's supposed to. So this is basically our class. So where virtual comes in is when we now, so for example, let's say we have another class and say new tutorial, something like that, and then it's supposed to inherit from tutorial now. And let's say for whatever reason this new tutorial has a new format for the subject. So if I come around and I say public void show subject, and I said okay, this I want to do something else here, console or write line, doing something new with subject. So I will just come here and put in this. Okay, so doing something new with subject. Now you see the first issue, it raises an issue saying that show subject, it hides the inherited member show subject. That is, if you look at it here, it's saying the new tutorial does show subject is hiding tutorial does show subject. So if you come around now and let me make this new tutorial and I run this now, if I were to run this, you will see that doing something with mathematics is what we have here. There's no way for us to reach out to this particular implementation of show subject. Basically that's what happens when you go with this approach. So what we are supposed to do rather is when a class is to be inherited, when we intend to, when a class is inherited and we intend to have a different implementation in a child class, what we are supposed to do is that we give it the virtual keyword, so that when we come here, we now override that. And now it knows that what you are saying is, okay, so I do not want you to use the implementation of the base class. Rather, I want you to use this implementation. It works the same way, but this is the expectation. So you see the error we saw there. So you see basically it's still the same thing is showing, doing something new with mathematics. But you see the error we are getting, or the squiggly line we are getting here, is no more there, because at this point it now knows that show subject here is overriding whatever implementation was here in the base class. Now, so this is what the virtual keyword really, it allows you to have your own implementation. That's why if you go back to the slide, you see we say it shows that a class member can be overridden. So it expects that when it sees the virtual, that the base class implementation is being overridden. You are overriding whatever implementation is given here, basically. And that's just so so for example, let's say I want to do this implementation, and I also wanted to do the implementation of whatever was in this place. I could just come ahead here and just say base dot show subject. And if we go ahead to run this, let's see what it does, just for us to see. You see, it does doing something new with mathematics, and it goes ahead to do the implementation of the base class, which is the subject is mathematics. So you see, we are able to combine the both of them without repeating what is being done. We didn't have to copy the code here and put here itself. So this is the benefit of having a virtual keyword, of having it to go with this approach where you have a virtual keyword. So it's important to know that when you use the virtual keyword, you are only stating that if the child class wants to, they can override it. So now if I remove this, we don't have an error. If I run this, what will just happen is we just show the implementation. So you see, it just shows the subject is mathematics, because it checks, it sees that this child doesn't override it. So what it just does, it goes to use the base implementation. But if the child class has an implementation that is overriding it, what it now does is it uses the child's implementation. Basically, that's what we have here. And as we can see here, we have doing something new with mathematics, and then the subject is mathematics. So because it did this, and then it went ahead to call the base implementation, and the base implementation we just console log the subject is whatever the subject, which is mathematics in this particular scenario. So this is the virtual keyword and how it's used in C#. It's very kind of straightforward. Let's get back to the slide. So we said here that the virtual keyword only applies to methods and properties, so meaning that you cannot use it for classes or fields. So let's go back to our code and see. So here we have you see we used it on methods, so we can use it on properties too. We can call this a virtual property, and meaning that you can come here and actually override it. You see, it allows you to do that. You can override it and say maybe this is new boy, something like that. You can override it. And so if I remove this now and I run this, you will see that it will show that doing something with new boy is what it will say, because I have overridden it and given it a new value of new boy. So basically that's for properties. But we cannot do those for fields. So you can't come here and say you can't come here and say public virtual and say maybe string great. Let's just say what's title. Let's say the title. You can't come here and do this. It will not allow, because fields are not, you are not allowed to pass them as virtual. So if I remove the virtual, you see it doesn't, it's no more throwing the red squiggly line. But once it's a field, then it cannot be a virtual. Also, a class cannot be virtual. So you can't come here and say public virtual class tutorial. It does not, because what virtual means is that if you want to override, it's only used for overriding when there's possibility to override the implementation of what is in the base class. So you don't use the virtual keyword on the class, and you don't use it for fields. But for the methods and for properties, it's very much allowed to use the virtual, so that you can now override. You can choose to override or not to override. So basically, if I override it or I don't override it, we don't have any problem with that. And that is the virtual keyword in C#. So I hope that this is clear, and I hope that this gives a basic understanding of what the virtual keyword and the implications. So when you go through a code base and you see something like virtual, what it only means is that if anything is inheriting from it, they can decide to override that implementation if they so wish to. So thank you, and see you in the next video.